Okay, boys and girls, this is Math Message 1-4, and in today's lesson, we are going to be working on rounding numbers to the nearest 10 and the nearest 100 using an open number line. But before we get started on rounding those numbers, let's make sure that we have scrap paper and pencil there with you, or maybe a whiteboard to write on, because I'm going to ask you to do a couple of problems before we get into our workbook. So the first thing I want you to do is I want you to add these numbers. I want you to add 28 and 37. And I want you to do it any way you want to. So go ahead and pause the video and solve 28 plus 37. Okay? All right. So now, if you were in class, we would have shared several strategies, and boys and girls had all different kinds of strategies. I had some boys and girls who drew the base 10 blocks. So they drew 10, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26, 27, 28. They drew 28, and they drew 37. 10, 20, 30, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And then they said that they could add them together. And so they had 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 51, 52, 53, 54, 55, 56, 57, 58, 59, 60, 61, 62, 63, 64, 65. And that is a fine strategy to do. Now, that's a strategy that you really learned how to do in first and second grade. We'll be moving away from that strategy quite a bit here in third grade because we're going to find some quicker and easier strategies to use since our numbers are going to be bigger. But if that's how you solved it, that's fine. I had other boys and girls that they said, well, I'm going to add my tens, and I know that 20 plus 30 is 50. And then I'm going to add my ones. 8 plus 7 is 15. And then I need to put together my 50 plus 15 and got my 65. All right, so there were several different strategies, but regardless of what strategy you use, your answer should have been 65. Now, we need to make sure that our answer makes sense. And we need to really start doing this. Make sure your answer makes sense. So many times we just want to put an answer down and move on to the next one, and we never even look to see, does it make sense? Now we can do this by doing something called estimating. Now if you were in class, we would have been talking to our neighbor. What do you think estimating means? Estimating is, one way to estimate is to find a close but easier number to add or subtract. Okay, so when I go back to that, let's go back to this original problem. That 28 plus 37, if I want to make sure that my answer makes sense, that I'm at least close, I can estimate. What number is close to 28, but it's easier to do in our head? Well, I would have changed 28 to 30. Okay. Now look at 37. What's close to 37, but's easier? 37 is close to 40, right? And that's an easier number. What makes these numbers easier? Well, because they end in 0. And anytime a number ends in 0, it's easier because you don't have to add the ones. All you have to do is add the tens. So 30 plus 40, I could do that in my head. That is 70. Does my answer of 65 make sense? Is 65 pretty close to 70? It's pretty close, so I know that it makes sense. So estimating is a really, really super important skill in everyday life to have, and we need to know how to round numbers. Okay, so I'm going to kind of skip. We did a lot of other problems here in class, but I want to kind of jump to the nitty-gritty of the lesson for those of you who may have missed class and are doing this from home. All right, so rounding on a number line. Now some of you may say, hey, Mrs. McMullen, I already know how to round. I don't need to use a number line. That's fine. But for this lesson, I want you to be able to show your work on this number line. All right, so we're going to round to the nearest 10. So we're going to round 54 to the nearest 10. Now, when I say to the nearest 10, I'm talking, okay, is it close to 0? 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, 70, 80, 90, 100. I could go on and on and on and on. I want to find out what 10 is it closer to. Well, to do that, I'm going to make an open number line. And if you are at home with just paper and pencil, I just want you to draw a quick line. Okay? And you are going to put a number here. You're going to put, so I'm going to put number on each end, and I'm going to put a number in the middle. Okay? All right, so now 54 is between what two tens? 54 is somewhere between 50 and 60. So I'm going to write 50 down here and 60 down here. Now, what number is smack dab in between 50 and 60? 55, right? Because what's half of 10? If you put up 10 fingers and put down half of them, how many do you have left up? 5, right? So 5 is half of 10. Now that I have my number line built, I can now put 54 on that number line. Is 54 somewhere between 50 and 55, or is 54 between 55 and 60? When you put 54 on the number line, it's right before 55. So when I'm rounding 54 to the nearest 10, it's closer to 50. Okay, so my answer here, rounding it to the nearest 10, is 50. All right, let's try another one. We're going to round to the nearest 10 again. Now looking at 168. What digit is in the tens place? The 6, right? So that's what I'm concerned about. 168. What two tens is that between? 168 is between 160 and 170. You see that? I'm concerned about that tens part. The 100 part is going to stay the same. 68 is between 60 and 70. So 168 is between 160 and 170. Now I have to put my number that's in the middle. That would be 165. All right, now my number line is built. I have my beginning number, I have my ending number, and I have my number in between. Now I can place the 168 on the number line. 168 comes after 165, right? So maybe right about there. So when I round 168 to the nearest 10, it's going to round to 170. And this is how I'm going to show it on an open number line. All right, this one here says round to the nearest 100. So look at 325. The 3 is in my hundreds place. So now if I'm rounding to the nearest 100, I'm talking about, okay, is it closer to 100, 200, 300, 400, 500, 600, and so on. Put your two ending numbers. So if you're at home right now, I want you to draw your open number line. Remember, put your beginning number, your ending number, and your number in between. 325 is between 300 and 400. Now, do you know what number is smack dab in between? This time we're talking about 100. If I have 100 pennies and I split them in half and I gave half to me and half to my friend, when I take 100 and I split it in half, it equals 50. So in between is 350. 50 is half of 100. Now I got to decide, where does 325 go? Well, 325 is going to be between 300 and 350. So what does 325 round to? Well, it's closer to 300 than it is to 400. So 325 rounds to 300. All right, I'm going to kind of skip some of those We would have done a lot more practice in class. And remember, when you're at home, you can always do a lot more practice at home. What I want you to do is go ahead and go to pause the video. I want you to do each number line drawn. Remember to put that number at the beginning, the number at the end, that number smack dab in between, and then you'll place the number on the number line. Start it and we'll check our work together. All right, so hopefully you took that time to do this workbook page. Remember, as we go over it, if you made some mistakes, pause the video, fix your mistakes. It says, what is 47 rounded to the nearest 10? Well, 47 is somewhere between 40 and 50. Okay, 47 is between 40 and 50. Smack dab in between is 45. All right, so now my number line is built. Now I can place the 47. 47 comes after 45, so I'm going to put it somewhere right in there. And what does it round to? Is it closer to 40 or is it closer to 50? Well, this was a shorter jump, so 50 is my answer. All right, what is 72 rounded to the nearest 10? So 72 is between 70 and 80. Did you hear what I did there? I say the number slowly. 72 is between 70 and 80. Smack dab in between is 75. Now when I place 72 on the number line, I know it comes before 75, so I'm going to put it in here somewhere. When I'm rounding it, 72 is closer to 70 than it is to 80. So my answer here is 70. And number 3, what is 234 rounded to the nearest 100? Okay, now I'm concerned about my hundreds. 234. 200 and 300. Say that number slowly. 200 and 300. All right, now do you remember what I said is in between the hundreds? Half of 100 is a 50. So 250 should go in between. Now when I go to place 234, I know that 234 comes before 250. So I'm going to put my 234 somewhere in here. It doesn't have to be exactly where it goes, but I just know it's after 200 and it's before 250. So when I'm rounding to the nearest 100, it's closer to 200 than it is clear down here to 300. So my answer for this one is 200. All right, so now for number 4, number 5, they give you a little table here, and they just wanted you to round the number. In this table, you're rounding to the nearest 10, and in this one, you're rounding to the nearest 100. It says you may sketch a number line to help you. So you could sketch the number line to help you do it. If you didn't need those, then you're fine. Okay? If you didn't do this part yet, pause the video and do it. If you did do it already, check your work with me. All right, 43 you should have that is closer to 40 because it's between 40 and 50, right? But it's closer to 40. 97 is close to 100 because it's between 90 and 100, but it's closer to 100. 453, now remember we're rounding this to the nearest 10, not to the nearest 100, so I'm just concerned about my 10s there. 453 is between 450 and 460. It's closer to 450. If you got any of those wrong, I want you to pause the video and draw back out your number line and place your numbers. All right, looking at number 5. 348 rounded to the nearest hundred. 348 is between 300 and 400. Now remember, 350 is going to go in between, so 348 is closer to 300. All right, 89. Now again, I'm rounding to the nearest hundred. This one tricks boys and girls. What's in my hundreds place right here? 0, right? So 89 is somewhere between 0 and 100. This one tricks boys and girls every year. Now, in between, remember, is 50. So 89 is closer to 100. And then finally, 297. It's somewhere between 200 and 300. Remember, 250 would be in between. So 297 is closer to 300. Again, if you got any of those wrong, pause the video, go and draw your number line, put your beginning number, your ending number, your middle number, and then place the number and round it. All right, we will do a lot more work with these in class, but hopefully if you didn't make it to class today, this at least helps you to kind of get a glimpse of what we did so that you're not too far behind.